This is Brittney Slayes with Unleash the Archers, and I'm blowing it up with the Mighty Z on Capital Chaos TV. How did I first get into music, and who or what turned me on to heavy metal? Well, I first heard Megadeth when I was 8 years old, and I think that was probably the moment when I knew that I was a metalhead. Countdown to Extinction was definitely one of my favorites, and it just captured my imagination, and I was in love with the artwork, and I used to sit there on the floor with my little purple stereo listening to the cassette tape, and would just stare at the little leaflet inside the cassette for hours and listen to the album, and it just really spoke to me. And I continued to listen to metal throughout my younger years, but kind of lost it a little bit in high school, peer pressure and all with whatever pop music is going on at the time. But then when I was 18, I heard Iron Maiden, and that really brought me back to my metal roots and inspired me to become a vocalist in a heavy metal band. I'd been singing in choir for years and doing musical theater and stage productions and things like that, but it wasn't until I heard Iron Maiden that I realized that I was maybe not where I should be, and that was when I kind of started getting the idea to start a band. Do I enjoy hip-hop, R&B, or country? Yes, I do. At the moment, I'm really into this guy called Orville Peck from down here in the States, and he plays kind of like I guess you call it like a sultry kind of country, bit of a Lana Del Rey feeling in there, and I've been really loving that. And I kind of like all types of music. There's a lot of hip hop out there that I listen to as well. If it's good music, I'll listen to it. I'm not the kind of person that refuses to listen to anything but metal. It's like seriously so far from that. So just try and keep my mind open to whatever's out there. What was my first rock concert, and have my parents always approved? Absolutely, my parents have approved, for sure, from the beginning. My brother actually introduced me to heavy metal. It was him that bought the Megadeth tape, and he wasn't a huge fan, but I definitely was, so that became my tape. But my first rock concert was Finger 11. Yes, I know, they're kind of radio rocky now, but back in the day they were indeed a metal band, and so I saw them long time ago. I think I was probably 12 or 13, and my brother took me to the show with him, and that was really awesome, and I really enjoyed it. It was in this venue called the Croatian Cultural Center down in Vancouver, and it wasn't like huge, but it was a great hall, and it was such a rad show, and I just really enjoyed it, and I've always loved going to see live music ever since then. The first music that I bought with my own money, and my most prized collectible, probably my most prized vinyl right now is my Iced Earth 10-inch that I bought that had all the lyrics with all the artwork for the last record that they put out, and it's like an earbook, and so it had the 10-inch in the back and then different artwork for every song. And I know John Schaffer talked a lot about how important that was to him, that each song have imagery to it, and I thought that was really cool, so that's got a permanent spot on my shelf. But the first thing that I bought with my own money was this CD, back when I had a little portable Discman, and I can't remember the name. I think it was called like Cherie, or I can't remember, but she was like an R&B singer, kind of like a little bit of a Beyonce thing, but a little bit more on the R&B side, Toni Braxton, that kind of thing. And I just loved that record, and I listened to it all the time, and I listened to it loud in class when I wasn't supposed to. And but that was the first one where I actually went to the record store, and my mom said, you can buy anything. And it was back in the days of HMV when they had the listening stations, and I chose that one, and it was kind of the one thing I spun for a little while there. What got me started playing music, and how old was I? Well, I had been singing from a very young age. The first time that my mom really noticed that I was a singer was when she went to pick me up from daycare one day, and I was whistling a tune, and she was late because she worked late a lot, and I was the last one there, and she came in, and the ladies that ran the place were just standing there watching me, and she was kind of like, what's going on? And they were like, she has been whistling this tune all day, and it's beautiful. Do you know what it's from? And she's like, oh my gosh, that's the theme song from the movie we watched last night. And I was whistling it in perfect key, and I had memorized it perfectly. And so she kind of realized there that I had a talent for music. So the second I was old enough, I think it was 7 years old, she put me into choir, and that was where I got my start. Explorers is our latest release, and yes, it is an EP, and I think that that's the future of music, really, kind of. With the way that digital streaming works these days and downloading and that kind of thing, physical media just doesn't seem to be quite as important. So I feel like, I mean, you can see it with the larger artists as well. They're just dropping tracks, doing singles, one single after the other, and it's all digital, and you know, they might have it on vinyl or something like that. But for the most part, it seems to be singles are kind of the way to go, and then after you've done that for a little while, maybe 5 or 6, then you'll put out a record that has all of those singles on it. So I think that the more often you can release music, the better. So by doing something like what Ghost does, for example, they will do a full-length record, and then they'll do an EP, and then a full-length record, and then an EP. And I think that's a really great way to go about it, because EPs are shorter. You got to have less involvement. Not necessarily covers. This one was a covers EP just because those songs really meant a lot to us, and we wanted to kind of bring a little bit of light to Canadian music. And so maybe we might do an EP after this next full length of original songs. Who knows? Might be an original and a cover. It's not not determined quite yet, but we definitely really like the idea of releasing more music more often and not necessarily relying on it being a physical release. So I think that's just kind of the future of music in general. Yeah. How has the recording process changed? And are Canadian grants still as generous as they have been in the past? Well, our recording process and writing process has changed quite a bit, actually. From the days of Behold, it was just basically bring out a riff, write a song, and move on to the next one. Whereas with Apex, our 2017 album, and the newest record that's going to be coming out in 2020, we definitely had more of a structure. We had a guideline. These were concept records, so I wrote each song like a chapter of the story, and then we used that as a guideline for the riffs and for the feeling and for the emotion that we wanted the song to convey. So before, it was really just someone would bring a riff and say, do you like this one? Like, what do you feel with this? And I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds kind of like we're journeying on the ocean, let's write a sea shanty kind of a song. Whereas now it's definitely very directed, and we know exactly where we want to go, and the record is very much more cohesive, and every piece has to fit into the puzzle, as opposed to just kind of writing songs willy-nilly. And grants, we've never gotten one, but I do know lots of Canadians that have gotten them, and they are awesome, and they really do help. Personally, I have never had the time to apply for them. We're working on it for this next album because it was very expensive. So if we want to be able to afford to get out on the road and be able to afford to print merch and that kind of thing, we're going to be looking at applying for a grant, and hopefully we get one. It does seem to be that you kind of have to be established when you apply for the grant. You kind of have to have that, street cred behind you to show that their money is going to the right place. But if you can do that, if you can prove yourself, then yeah, they're very generous. Well, what can we expect from the new Unleash the Archers record? There are some changes for sure. We have introduced synth, so there's a lot of synth and keyboard and stuff going on the new album. The boys wrote the whole thing on 7 strings, so there's a lot more. It's very melodic. The choruses are all super catchy. The riffage is all super catchy. We've definitely gone more of a progressive, symphonic, but still power metal vibe. We've got even a little bit of a synthwave vibe, I guess you could say. It's not like super synthwavy, but there's that influence there for sure. We're all really into synthwave right now. So it's going to be new, and we're really hoping that everybody enjoys it, because it's not quite as heavy. I mean, we still got a couple heavy ones on there, but it's not nearly like what it was in the beginning with Behold the Devastation and that kind of thing. But we're always going to keep our screams in there and our heavier growls and heavier riffage. But it's going to be different. I really hope that you guys like it. How does it feel to be touring in the midst of a pandemic? Well, I just hope that people continue to come out to the shows, because we don't have anything, I promise. I'm not really too scared about it. We got a lot of hand sanitizer on the bus and on our person, and we're just trying to be as careful as possible. But really, I guess the only fear is that people are not going to come out to the shows, or that shows are going to be canceled, because everyone's worried that the congregation of people is where it's going to spread and that kind of thing. And we just hope that it doesn't affect anything. It hasn't affected anything so far, so we're doing pretty good. But yeah, just I mean, it hasn't really gotten to us yet, but we have already heard so far on this tour of others tours being canceled. So it's it's a worry, but it's not quite in the forefront for us just yet. How familiar are we with Dragon Force and Visions of Atlantis? Well, I think most of us have known Dragon Force for a very long time. They've been around for a long time. I personally went to several Dragon Force shows when I was younger. When they released Valley of the Damned, I went down to Seattle to their show there, traveled specifically for it and saw them down there, and it was rad, and they continue to be rad. And I love their new music as well. I love Mark on vocals. I think he was a great addition. ZP was fantastic, but Mark fits just as well, and I love the new stuff. There's a few new tracks as well, of course, that I love. Cry Thunder is probably my favorite from Dragon Force, so I'm always singing along to that one. Visions of Atlantis, I'm not too familiar with their stuff, but I've definitely been watching their videos for the Wanderers EP that came out, so I've been singing along to those ones. I don't know the words quite yet, but every night I'm warming up to them while they play, so I'm learning the words slowly, and hopefully I'll be able to sing along really soon. But they are awesome, and Clem is fantastic. I've known her for a really long time. We were in this Facebook group called Eve's Apple for a long time, and her and I were really close on there, so it's been really great getting to tour with the both of them. Like, fantastic bands and fantastic people. We do have a new album coming out this year, 2020. It's in the mixing stages right now. We've just gotten a few mixes back, and we're really excited about that. So if all goes as planned, it should have a July release, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. Follow us on Bands in Town. It's a really killer app. You can follow your favorite bands, and then it'll notify you when they're coming to town. You can choose like a kilometer radius, and then it'll tell you, if we're coming within that mile radius. And then we'll post all of our tour dates on there, so we should have CD release tours coming up pretty quick here. And yeah, just follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. We're not like super active on Twitter, but we always post on there, and then I like to check it about once a month or so and reply to everybody and reply to your comments and everything. So yeah, just give us a follow on social media and keep an eye out for the new record.